So thanks again to our partners and to our amazing panel who you'll all meet shortly for helping us bring this event to life. Before we dive in, we'd like to share an artistic moment as we clear our minds and settle in for this conversation. And we hope this helps you feel grounded and open for today's discussion. So blessing us with her gifts today, we have Kenya Del Mar. Kenya is a singer, rapper, and musician who combines soul, hip hop, and pop into what she calls soul fusion. Her art pays homage to the classics with a refreshing level of creativity and honesty. She's joined us for some webinars before, so if you're returning, you will recognize her. It's always a treat to have her back. So without further ado, Kenya, take it away.
All right. Good morning / afternoon to everyone. I'm happy to be back. And I just want to say I was very inspired by you all's topic today. So this song is an original. Plenty people want to be in charge, but that ain't what we need. We need people who understand what it really means to lead. 'Cause it takes more than a title. It's about more than being seen. In all that you do, be the best you and bring the best out of your team. Who will lead? Who will lead? Step up, step in, through the losses and the wins. Who will lead? Trust me, it ain't always easy to navigate this world with love and integrity, courage to heed the call, willing to stand tall. I choose to walk the line and get back up if I fall, 'cause I know the changes will be profound if we do the right thing, even when no one's around. Create a space where we can all feel safe. Even small changes can make the world a better place. Who will lead? Who will lead? Step up, step in, through the losses and the wins. Who will lead? Who will lead? Who will lead? Step up, step in, turn the losses into wins. Who will lead? Who will lead? Who will lead? Who will lead? Who will lead?
Wow. We love that. That was so beautiful. You're getting a lot of love in the chat. And her question was, who will lead? Thank you so much for sharing your gift with us today. We really appreciate it. And welcome to this amazing webinar. I'm already calling it that. My question to you is, who will lead through the losses and the wins? Are you adapting your leadership style and mindset to the current state of your organization realities? As we emerge from the pandemic into this disruptive world of work, expectations from leaders are higher than ever before. With the changing dynamics of the modern work environment, greater complexity, remote forms of working, and evolving social and cultural perspectives, we must demand a refashioning of how leadership is exercised, generated, and consumed. The reality is, leadership competencies are changing. Human-centered leadership skills are rising to the top of the competency list. Is your organization ready to support a shift from traditional leadership to a more progressive practice of leadership? To prosper into the future, organizations must be able to adapt rapidly to the ever-changing environment that they operate in. The status quo management style of the past, y'all, may deliver short-term results, but will ultimately leave you and your organization in a state of decay. An organization with better adaptability starts with leaders like you all here on the call today, who have a growth mindset that drives them to constantly seek how to both do better things and to be better. So, what leadership trends should you be ready for in 2023? Well, like my mama used to say, baby, you're gonna learn today. From our brilliant movement makers, Lauren Gilbo, Head of Growth ThinkHuman, Dr. Aida Martinez-Freeman, Global DEIB Program Manager, PowerToFly, and the handsome and brilliant Lee Turner, co-founder of HENSLEE HR. Welcome, welcome to you all. We are excited to have this conversation with you. And I just love the intro. Who will lead? So think about this. Along your leadership development journey, this is for all of you. How did you learn what was essential as a leader?
I will kick us off, if that's all right. I am in HR, so I have always had the privilege of being this bridge between leadership and employees. And so I've really had an opportunity to listen to both sides, and that helps shape and inform the way that I approach leadership. The skills that I encourage in them, the trainings that I provide, I really take kind of the feedback from both sides, employees and leadership, and merge those two as I'm then kind of managing up for our leaders.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I started my career as an individual contributor salesperson. And I think a lot of my original thoughts around leadership and around management were all by example, how certain leadership styles or ways managers I had led me. I kind of copied those as I was thrust into running sales teams and leading organizations. And then it wasn't until, I had more formal training that gave me a sense of what really are the core things that you need to be thinking about. Why do we do one-on-ones? Why do we give feedback in this way? Why did that feel good? Why did it feel bad kind of thing? Understanding that why, that really it clicked for me for what was really important about being a leader. So starting with just by example, and then moving into really getting formal training and understanding and language around leadership.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing.
I think similar to Lauren, definitely, by example, what I can tell you is I have done some critical listening and some critical observing of what's happening around me, right? How do people navigate and negotiate the culture of where they work? That also shapes how they lead or how they don't lead. Or very different ways in which then leadership is defined. That is, can be part of how sometimes leadership and management can be equated with toxicity and politics and so forth, right? There's that funk that comes with it. I also, in my observing, just noticed what skills and what behaviors were valued the most. And that's both a positive thing, right? And seeing the best of people and in terms of what's valued and so forth. And also some real telling stories about what are the things that, what are those behaviors and skills that are valued and are lifted up as examples of the best that may actually not be necessarily the healthiest and or the most productive or the most needed in times when you need inclusive leadership and in times when you need psychological safety and in times when you need all of that, right? Like they're the ones who get in the way, but they get lifted up and they, you know, somehow you're wondering why are they still here after all the complaints, right? It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I like how you differentiated the two of how you define leadership and how the culture define leadership.
Correct.
It's totally different.
Yep, because it's always in tension in some
form. It is always in tension, correct. And Lauren, how you talked about modeling and that, you know, just observing and learning about the different leadership styles and Lee looking at it from both ends, from the employee and leadership perspective. So, you know, I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on, you know, what was essential or considered essential then early on in your career versus now that you've evolved as a leader and grown.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I think early on, it was like we were just talking about, there were certain things that really, like, it was performance. Like, it was, how do we get the most performance out of the team? How do we, like, as a leader, what are the things that I do that just like keep people on track? And so one-on-ones were really not originally, like whenever I was first doing them, they weren't really developmentally focused. They were check-ins. How's the week going? Like, how are we moving towards these goals? All like KPI and OKR like focused. And I think, you know, as I've evolved in my own leadership journey, and as, you know, I think we as like an HR and a leadership development like community, I think seeing this shift in how are we like being emotionally intelligent leaders? How are we using empathy in the correct ways and really understanding what's going on with our people and using leadership as a way to develop, a way to nurture, a way to like get to the humanity and trusting that the results come from that kind of leadership. You don't have to do it the other way. You can actually be very human-centric. You can use emotional intelligence. You can be a compassionate human being. And then people are willing to like go for you and work with you in that way. And I think that was the switch for me of like, oh, there's a totally different way to do this, and just to trust humans to like get it done as long as you respect and like you work together as a team.
I love that. And you're getting and some love in the chat as well. Focusing on the humanity, focusing on the people and not the profit. I do see that shift now occurring in leadership. Yeah, that human, Lena, yes, the human connection. You're so right.
Mm-hmm. I would say some of the things that I've when I think back in my career, and I started actually my career in higher education and left an industry that I thought I was going to retire from because of this kind of behaviors that were coded as leadership, is who can work the longest, right? Like before anybody else, and putting in 16-hour days and answering 24/7 to all the emails and everything that everybody threw them way, they can totally, like, they would just say yes to, right? Doesn't mean that the work was good. So let me be clear on that. Like, but it's just like they showed up everywhere and they were the ones who always got the awards and all that kind of stuff and so forth. And that's how you showed commitment to your place of work. That's how you showed dedication, right? Loyalty, right? Like that's how that got equated, right? Like that's the commitment. And then people started competing with each other, trying to kind of
Yep.
outdo each other, right? In some form. Again, just really what that translated is like we needed to prove our value constantly every day and continue through our worth by sacrificing our minds and our bodies in that process, right? So how things have shifted, and thank goodness for the new generation of folks that are really coming into the workplace that are going, what? No, we're not about to do that, right? And I'm so appreciative of them because they really have taught me in many ways who've been conditioned that way, and it did not serve me well. Conditioned to always think about my well-being first, and being able to really center that as a critical piece of leadership, right?
Yes.
We want to take care of customers and clients and mobilize products and do all this kind of things, but we cannot miss the fact that we also have to take care of our employees, that we have to, provide self-care, that we have to create flexibility for them, that we need to make sure that they're healthy through this process. And I think that those are the new ways in which we're really thinking differently about leadership, and what we see still as part of the tension coming off COVID, what we still see as part of that very palpable tension that's there.
Yeah. Because you have a group that still want to go back to the old way, or back to the normal.
Or normal, whatever normal was.
Whatever that is, right?
Is capitalism normal? Is that like systems of oppression and privilege? Is that normal? No, right? We're conditioned to believe that's normal, and we have the systems that support each other and make it look that way, right? It's an illusion, right? But we buy into it, and then it becomes part of our identity. It becomes part of the work that we do and how we do, and we lose ourselves in that process, right?
Yes.
How about we don't do that anymore? And that's where I think that's the piece that when people are going out there trying to hire new folks, they need to be very aware. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, kind of what that looks like and feel like, and what's the response? What is the response of these companies to be able to mobilize differently, because it's no longer just a must-have. This is what we are expecting of a new way of work that we deserve in order for us to do the best work that we can, but also take care of our health and not feel like we have to sacrifice it for a system that will never sacrifice for you.
Come on, Dr. Aida. You get mic drops, preach, raise hands, keep it going and
Let's
flowing.
go, people. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Lee, I want to into the conversation. You have some amazing thoughts.
Yeah, certainly echoing all of those sentiments. And the thing that I would like to add is a trend that I've been seeing, and something I certainly advocate for and encourage, is leadership being more vulnerable, being, exposing themselves as a flawed human, allowing themselves to be seen as someone that needs improvement, and being receptive to kind of that feedback flowing toward them. So that's a trend that I really pay attention to and that I love to see. I work a lot in technology, and so technology usually is at the forefront, the tech sector, of seeing these trends, and I've been very fortunate to help kind of push that forward. But when I see a leader as a human that has kids at home, that has to have a flexible schedule, that needs to make accommodations, that's having anxiety or mental health issues, when they're vulnerable about that, I feel more encouraged to be vulnerable and to show up in a different way. And so I would love to add that and kind of encourage that amongst any leaders on this call.
Yeah, Lee, you are getting some thumbs up, pluses. And Chris, I want to pull this into the conversation. Chris says, yes, when you expect perfection, you get fakes.
Mm-hmm.
You get fakes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit. This expectation of perfection. And when I'm coaching these leaders, I like to talk about, you're not all knowing, nor are you all doing. So there's no reason for you to put on. You are human.
Yeah,
and I know
people see through that.
Go ahead, Lee.
I'll say people see through that. People know, right? We're all human. We know that we're humans showing up at work. And so to have that front put on, it's discouraging. It makes me not want to be as engaged. It makes me not as trustworthy, and therefore erodes that relationship building. And so, that's part of this quiet quitting trend that we're hearing about. People are just not going to give if they're not receiving. And so, yeah.
Totally. So Stephen has a question, which I love this question. What's the line between vulnerable and getting too personal?
I think connecting with people at a human level of just when you as a leader are able to own up your mistakes, openly to others. I think that's very personable and very vulnerable. Well, it may be too personal would be if you go into details of things that are completely inappropriate, right? Like, I don't need to know what happened to you back when you were 13 years old that you hit somebody or something happened. You see, like I know it's a drastic kind of a example, but it's like we kind of knowing when it's just too much, right? And it's just too much information. I think there's something to be said about connecting at a human level. If somebody's having an issue and really sitting with them and really being able to be in a place in which you can share, there's some identities that we share that, whenever you're ready, if you feel like there's anything I can do for you, I've had my own journey, right? That
Yeah.
we may be
Yeah.
able to be of support with each other, but I don't need to give my whole like dysfunctional family story, right?
Correct.
Like,
Trauma dumping. Like, I
does
think
that, yeah.
sure you're not like just dumping a bunch of trauma on people, and rather
Yeah.
just being like clear on your perspective and like what you like might be going through without like unpacking like the depths of your soul and what
Right.
we've gone through as humans. Like, I feel like we've gotten into this place now where sometimes, like, especially as leaders, we're put in like this role of therapist and
Yeah.
and like to each other and to the organization, and it's like that's not really like what work is, right? That's, I don't think it's healthy to like have that kind of relationship or that kind of like that kind of depth. And I think you can be vulnerable without having to go all the way. You don't have to show your soul like all of it to be like
Right.
showing up as yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because imagine what that puts on the other person, right? Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden it shifts the attention away from them to you.
Yeah.
And then that is where ego starts showing up. You're really shifting. It's really, sorry you're experiencing it, but let's talk about me, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
whether
Yeah.
you realize it or not, that's really at play. And we also have to understand that we're still within systems that are driven by power and control.
Yeah.
And so too much of that information, right, can be used against you. It can be flipped.
Yes.
Let's be honest
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
We know how that shows up in performance reviews. You're like, where did that come from? Like, that was just a moment of me thinking that I could trust, and all of a sudden you're being like judged, or like, well, you share this and here's the following policy that shows up, right? Because it's,
Uh-huh.
we put systems in place that are punishing to people, right? Because the systems can be very punishing. So that's something to also to keep in mind, when it comes to that. So Stephen, I hope we answered your question. Lee, do you have something else to add?
Yes, absolutely. So speaking of vulnerability, early in my HR career, this is something that I was a challenge that I struggled with. What is the line between empathy and sympathy, and how do I have these conversations with employees that are struggling or having personal issues or having issues within the workplace without exposing too much of myself? So again, just being relatable and sympathetic without going into my previous history or the struggles that I've faced. I can just kind of come at it from a general stance and be able to sympathize with them and to hold that space for them, but to also allow them to speak and for me to just be an active listener.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you to the community, sharing your intentions. We're getting a lot of great thoughts here. And Stephen said, yes, you did answer the question. And I think about, when it is time to share, think about what's taken away from you being the productive leader that you desire to be, and staying along those lines. And if you are a leader and you feel as though you're not comfortable with the information being shared, explore those other resources that could, allow you to say, hey, you know what? I don't think I am credentialed enough to help you with this issue. How about you go explore X, Y, and Z, whether it's, external coaching or mental health therapist, whatever that is. It's okay for you not to have the answer. And it's okay for you to find the answer with other resources as well. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because I know if you are a middle manager, a senior leader here, you probably do feel burdened with the responsibilities of your talent or just the emotional baggage that comes with managing them. seek out the community that you have around you in your organization for help.
Yes. That is one of my favorite pieces of advice for managers is it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to not have that answer. That's vulnerability, but you're also going to be solutions oriented. You're going to seek answers. You're going to turn to your support community. You're going to offer what you can and do the best that you can for that employee or for that manager. But I don't know, it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. So how do you create this safe and brave space to be able to share in a healthy way?
For me, it starts with psychological safety. We have to like create a culture where sharing, we're being authentic, we're being vulnerable, and saying I don't know doesn't lead to negative consequences. And quite the opposite, I think, has to be set up as one of the things that we reward, that we look at with leaders, and make that like a true part of our culture, that we are safe, like sharing, we are safe saying opposing ideas, we are safe speaking up, and that it's going to be rewarded and not punished.
Yeah, one of my favorite jobs and cultures was very intentional, and it was top down, bottom up, and one of our pillars was strong opinions weakly held, which meant everyone has an equal opportunity to speak their truth, to speak their voice, and to put that on the table. Weakly held means it may not be like that business idea may not be accepted or may not be the way we go, but we want to hear from everyone. And so that was part of our psychological safety. And that translated into, ER, employee relations issues as well. People knew that they could come forward, that they could kind of push back on some things they didn't agree with, and that's okay. We're going to hear that.
For me, that's a very layered question. Because one, we need to look at what is the current state of the current environment that you're in, right? I think that we're really good at grabbing the latest term and the latest, acronym that we have. We verbalize it, but we don't put it into practice, right? And if we do put it into practice, it's sometimes more often than not disconnected from, there may be some teams that do it a little bit better than others, and so forth and so on. So I think from a more global lens of the organization, I think I would need that this is where, looking at the climate in your organization and your company, looking to see your metrics, right? Like what are the numbers look like? How many people are leaving on medical leave, PTO, and so forth, that starts telling you the temperature of the well-being in the organization, right? And where are the areas that you might need to start educating folks on how to do this work through a lens of creating psychological safety. And when we think about the layers of trauma that's out there, a manager is not a manager, a leader, anyone working through, we all want to feel safe. What that looks like to people is going to be very different, and the practice of it is going to be at times messy because of our own humanness and our own trauma and
you
our
got to
own
repeat
ways.
that, Dr. Aida. You have to, that
messiness. It's pure messiness, right? Because we want that psychological safety, but to get and achieve that, we got to do certain work, right? We got to do a certain level of work on our own selves and our own exploration about our own trauma, our own workplace behaviors, our own ways in which we see triggers that we need to be aware of, right? In order for us to then lead from a place of healing rather than from a place of trauma. Right? Because then all of a sudden we're like healing through that lens of trauma, and we're still calling it psychological safety, right? And so guess what? That creates mistrust, that creates all sorts of different things. So I would say we also need to start looking at it through the lens of if psychological safety is a priority for your company, then make sure that that's included in your goals, that there is funding within that, and also that it starts from the beginning. Who gets hired? What kind of managers are coming in? What are the expectations for them? What kind of professional development are we going to provide to them, right? And measure that, right? To be able to do that, there has to be kind of a collective commitment to that, and that takes time to build, right? But I think that's where I think that question is very layered for me. Because it can also be a critical strategy for people if they're interested in truly putting that to work.
No, and thank you for breaking it down and talking about the different layers. But I want to hone in on something that you just said towards a tail end. It takes a collective approach, right, to ensure that it happens to, like, you know, successfully. Talk a little bit about that collective approach and that buy-in that's needed.
Well, it's very values grounded, right? I mean, there has to be kind of a collective understanding about our humanity and what are our community agreements and what is it that we want for everyone to be able to experience, right? With its flaws, with all of that, and also the agreements about when we fall short of it, what's our response? How do we address it? How do we move forward, right? Like having this kind of sense and understanding, and that gets practiced on a consistent basis, and that kind of, those are the kind of behaviors that are consistently elevated along the way. So that would be kind of my initial, thought in terms of some of that. I'll open it up to the others to see what other thoughts come to mind.
I loved how you framed it as being part of the objectives or goals. I think that's really important for kind of widespread, not only acceptance, but doing the work. So making that very cultural, very organizational led, really empowers it to come from the employees as well as from leadership. It's a visual goal. It's something that we're tracking. I think that's really important for people to be able to kind of measure the progress and also see where there needs to be improvement. I think that was really smart.
It keeps them accountable along the way. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
To see this practiced all the way to the top.
Yes.
Right. We need to see this specifically at the C-level, and we need to see this said over and over again and reinforced, because like we were talking about just a little bit earlier, people come into our organizations with varying degrees of workplace trauma. That we have to, some people who are new to the workplace, right? Like this young generations coming first into a corporate environment, they've got other stuff that they're bringing in, but they're not bringing in a bunch of workplace trauma. But others who've been in the workplace for a long time, we may have way more distrust. We may have heard this story before, right? Over and over again, and then seen it not play out whenever we're at a company for a couple of years. And we go, oh my God, this isn't at all what, they pitched me when I came in. This culture is not there. And so I think it's important, for those two things, C-level needs to show up in that way. And for us to really think about the varying degrees at which we enter the workplace and have to overcome those experiences of kind of being lied to in a way by systems and by companies who may have had good intentions but really didn't hold this truly dear in their culture or in the way they created community with their people.
Right. It was more so performative.
Oh, it is performative. Absolutely. It sure is. It looks really pretty on the website.
Oh, yeah.
And then I personally, it's beautiful. It's great. You're like, where are those people at? They're not here. The other thing that I find that's a whole lot of fun with this is stop asking people to fill out surveys if you're not going to do anything with them.
Come on.
Stop.
Yes.
Stop. Oh, I would like to do another employee engagement. Let's find out how people are doing. Let's find out their level of psychological safety, because that's another way in which you signal that we're just going through this performative motion of just making it look as though we're doing the work. And the reality is that it just goes from the working table to the file cabinet, and they'll have everything filed into all the different years in which they put that survey. And that beautiful information is sitting there to make great progress and be able to fully engage people, and really truly that contributes to that psychological safety. And to sit and not do anything about it and then be shocked that the same issue keeps coming up, to me it's stop. Just stop. It's I don't, that's, nobody believes you anymore, right? It just doesn't. So
spent all that time and effort and money collecting and listening, and then like there's a whole thing, like I used to be in the employee engagement space, and it was like there was a concept of like, oh, people are like, oh, like it's survey fatigue, like we just keep, we send out surveys and people are like, oh, like I don't want to like answer. It was always a lack of action fatigue. Like people really want to give their opinion. They really want to give their opinion. They want to be heard.
Right.
They don't want to be ignored. And it's like if you're ignored so many times, I'm not gonna give you that insight. That insight is gold.
Right.
People are telling you how to make your company better. And if you're not listening, you're failing. You're making a huge mistake.
Right. Or they're gonna leave and go somewhere else where they feel seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah. And this is where the quiet quitting starts kicking in, Lee, right? Because then it's it's actually a self-preservation move, right? And so people are like, then people start shutting down, and then look at what happens. Lee, you were going to say something?
I was almost along those lines, and I was also going to say, that's what causes toxic cultures. Like you could have a good culture that does have room for improvement, but when you're ignoring people, when you're asking them to do all this work, complete all this, give all this passion, and then there's no action taken, there's no voice, there's nobody seeing them, that leads to, that could lead to a toxic culture where people are talking amongst themselves and, trash talking essentially, and then quiet quitting. And there's just too many ramifications that come from that. And all you have to do is respond. Just take one piece of that survey, one action item, and start working there. It can be daunting. It can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information there, but pick one thing and start. That's all it takes.
Really do it and really do it. Like put money behind it. Like, like so many times where it's like something small is picked, or it's like, okay, we're going to do this little subcommittee or whatever, and it's going to be like extra work for people. And they're not going to get any pay for it. Like actually make it a company priority, and then show how you've moved the needle. Because, like if you do that once or twice and it doesn't like, move the needle, okay. But like when people are there a couple of years and they see this cycle happen over and over again, that's when they like start losing faith. And then they start talking among themselves, and the culture like starts to get tainted.
Yeah. Make that action item an HR goal. Make that one of your objectives for the quarter, right? Put that on the board, track it, make sure that you've got visibility on it, that people are actually working on it.
Yeah. Report to the company how you've moved that needle when you did, or if you didn't, you failed. Okay. How do we do it now?
Yep. So from your perspective, what do you believe were some of the big wins in 22 that you'll use to guide you with some of the initiatives in 2023, so that we don't make the mistakes that past leadership have made by ignoring the data or their talent request?
Yeah, I'll start with, I don't know if this would be considered a win necessarily by some, but this kind of forced shift into flexible working hours or remote locations, or kind of rethinking and reshifting how we work together. I am such a proponent of allowing people to be where they are, to work how they work, as long as the objectives and the goals are being met. Having to have somebody in the office and clocking them for every 8 hours that they're there and enforcing that, literally taking attendance almost, just is awful to me. It's awful. And so to be able to see that trend work, and then teams lean on HR to help support them in this new way of working, I'm super excited to see where this continues to go. We're seeing more and more pushback from employees, quitting. The great resignation part of this is because they're being forced into an office, they're being micromanaged. And so this kind of, this momentum that we have, I really encourage people to rethink. How are we enforcing our employees or encouraging our employees? What does that look like for us? So I'm excited to kind of continue that.
Thanks for sharing, Lee.
I mean, I would say that, we had the great resignation, then we also have the great resistance that's at play, right? Like, so post George Floyd, everybody from here to Timbuktu would have some kind of statement about, all of a sudden we're seeing life with some clarity around how we do the work and the commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that, I mean, through on a very unfortunate situation that kind of open eyes for a section of our population to be able to see kind of what was at play and what was happening, and kind of the corporate or company organizational responsibility in that process. And while maybe some of that is weighing off in terms of the C-suite and leaders maybe not feeling like they have to respond as actively, I mean, I don't know that we're seeing as much of that right as before. What we are seeing though is that hasn't necessarily, the employees and the pipeline still pretty lit up on the issues, and they're still asking those questions, and they're questioning systems of hiring and interviewing and retention right from the get-go around commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, what the initiatives look like, what kind of environment do we have. And so I think that goes into some of the things that we saw even prior to last year, right? That we're keeping going. And then also kind of that just knowing your ABCs around diversity, equity, and inclusion is not enough. That people are asking for more. They want more. They want more inclusive environments. They want diverse people to work with. They want diverse perspectives to work with. They want it to be honored and deep commitment. And anything less than that, they're not going to come to your company.
Come on.
They're moving on to other things that get them to places where they want to go. And I think that's super freeing. And that's also a challenge to leaders and to C-suite and our companies to have to rethink how they do the work and how they approach this work. Because there was a point in time in which you can just do like that one beautiful, very moving, tribute.
Statement.
My God, the statement. Martin Luther King, God bless him, love him, but there's more than that, right? So there's like, let's do that, show up for it every now and then, maybe some Harvey Milk. People might throw up a few folks here and there, but then that's it, right? Like it's again where it's performance, not living out the dream of what really DEIB is supposed to do in an environment. So those are some things that I think it's both, some challenges that we saw before that propelled us to this point, and then ways in which I guess there's that resistance that's coming through moving forward in workplaces.
And in that vein, I think, it's just like you said, like it's getting away from being performative and like really ingraining DEIB as not only this like separate thing like that's over here, but like how is that integrated through the way we do everything at the organization? The way like us at ThinkHuman, we've integrated DEIB into our leadership development journeys that we take organizations on, that we take leaders on. So like instead of talking about it as a separate topic, we talk about it through like when you're giving feedback as a leader, how do you do that through the lens of inclusion and equity? When you're delegating, how do you make sure you're delegating equitably, inclusively, giving everybody a shot and a chance? And like making sure that those are like leadership and DEIB are like integrated and combined into one thing. And then it's a holistic approach as an organization rather than like these little like, I guess you'd call them like patches, these
little initiatives
of like a little bit of help, like holistically, like change your diet, you know what I mean? Change your exercise, like your health,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, PowerToFly is the first place that I've worked in that they said DEIB is the cornerstone. It is who we are. That's it. Right. And so that means that who we hire and who we recruit and bring in has to have more than just the baseline knowledge around DEIB work, plus their expertise in marketing and sales, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the expectation. Right. And I think that is the future. We're seeing a lot more of that is the future, that's the expectation that to navigate the world and to stay relevant in the world moving forward, we have to start acting in such a way that it is central, is no longer just that nice thing to do once a month.
Right.
Yep.
Right. I'm curious to know, how do you keep them accountable, right? If they do have it as a metric, or if it's weaved into the development, how are you keeping these managers and leaders accountable to whatever goal that they said that they were going to commit to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's for everybody, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll start, and I don't want to take so much space, but You know, I think for me, it just really starts with the C-suite, right? It starts with making sure that seat, and we've done it at PowerToFly. Like, how do they understand, you know, this work? How are they looking through this metrics through a lens of DEIB, and having internal consultants that, you know, at the table to bring out those issues and do the work with the executive leadership when it comes, you know, to that work. And I think once you do that work, it's just going to take some time, but in order for it to be something that trickles down in a very positive way and in a very accountable way, it has to start with your leadership. It has to start with that C-suite, really having a deep understanding, really understanding what that accountability looks like, because that also means that what is required of them for us to make this accountable and to make that a reality is also part of that conversation. And then with that, being able to grab our senior, you know, leaders, depending on your work, and our mid managers. I think we've talked about how mid managers are incredible, right? Like, that's my jam. I lived in mid management. I love the possibilities of what mid managers can do, right? The right position between, like, being able to see what's up and what's coming down, and also, like, hopefully close enough to, like, the ground with everything that's at play, that they have usually a really good assessment of where things are, but they're oftentimes too thinly stretched and too overworked. And those are critical positions to be able to really engage them in that work. So we need to start opening up some space and some mind space for them to be able to then, with those metrics, then create what are significant accountabilities that can come with that. But it has to be woven into the fabric of the business goals. It has to be woven into the fabric of just like what you do, how you breathe, what you breathe, all of that kind of stuff. And that there are systems at play, right? Whether it's quarterly check-ins that people have to do presentations and show where they're at, you know, to have the C-suite also do presentations about where they're at in terms of meeting those metrics, where we're not meeting them, resources available for people to do that. It is possible, and that also needs to be tied to promotions, that needs to be tied to performance reviews. I mean, so that anywhere you look, there shouldn't be a way out. It just is. It's a business metric that is no longer just a side metric. It is a critical piece that we're all expected to do. And then what support is provided to them to make it happen. So if taken seriously enough, there's no way that they can't be accountable, because that means that then you're not getting certain, you know, points towards something, whatever X is, right? Depending on how your structure is. So that's where I would initially begin with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus to all of that, Dr. Ida. And we are so in alignment with mid-managers. And one of the things I love to do is a monthly managers meeting, supplemented with a manager Slack channel where we can have conversations. But during those monthly meetings, making this part of that agenda, making sure that we're tracking those goals, we're looking at feedback, we're taking surveys from our employees, we're using pulse surveys, and maybe there's a question in each weekly pulse survey, and we dive into that. And so that becomes a regular part of the conversation, not just a training checkbox that we need to have. It's woven into everything. It's woven into those performance reviews that we're talking about, the one-on-one. And again, get feedback from the employees, have them kind of rate what they're seeing and what they would like to see.
And clearly define your leadership expectation for all levels, and make sure, like, this is how we lead, and this is how you're judged and promoted and, like, rewarded based on meeting these goals, because we know if we're doing this, we're going to get the business results that we expect. And so, like, really, I think, spot on. Plus.
Yeah. And so with that, we only have 6 minutes left. And so before we close, just that fast, all, we're going to do a quick little poll to identify which organization would you like to connect with. Please don't drop. Look, these amazing leaders here shared their thoughts and insights and resources. Please don't leave them hanging. Connect with them after the webinar, whether it's on LinkedIn or connecting with them directly. They want to hear from you. They've shared their thoughts with you. Continue the conversation and connect with them. So we're going to give you a quick second to connect with them. Again, don't drop. We're not done yet. We have our closing key takeaways. and then we will be finished. Okay, so you got 6 minutes left. Stay with us just a little bit longer. Select one of the organizations or all to continue the conversation with. And so with that, just everything that we've heard, a lot of valuable information that you all have shared. But I do want to go into this last area, key takeaways. Is there one competency that a leader should prioritize in 2023? If not competency, practice, if not practice, philosophy or principle that they should take into 2023.
Yeah, my response, my initial response is kind of this umbrella term of EQ, emotional intelligence, right? Which is part of psychological safety. Active listening is in there. Response, allowing for feedback. So really listening to your people, making yourself a vulnerable leader that's connecting on a human level and encouraging them to take space, to have a voice, that they are heard and seen. And so, you know, empathy, vulnerability, being approachable and an available leader, I think that is key for 2023. Everyone is going through something, and especially now. And so making sure that people are seen and heard it's got to be a must-have. Yeah.
The used to be soft skills are now the key skills, the power skills that Laura
skills,
said.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say, I think, sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just gonna say mine is like right now deeply like right with you. Empathy and learning how to balance empathy with effectiveness. Because I think we often see people like go far on one of the scales or the other, and there's consequences to that. And so like, how do we balance and like play in that area? And it's nuanced, and it's not easy, and it takes training, and it takes like focus and intention to like grow your emotional intelligence. It's not something that just happens overnight. It's like a practiced skill you can get better at.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lauren. And Chase says, I want to add to, he says, thank you. That sounds so simple and common sense, but it's just so hard for leaders to recognize and execute at times.
It is.
Yeah, because we're conditioned to not put that as a priority, right?
Yep.
And then so when it's not, it just isn't, and that's why some of these things become so hard. I think adaptability is incredible. It's powerful. Your way is not the only way.
Repeat.
The same way that the company has been doing things don't have to be the only way. Otherwise, if it's the only way, then you're going to have a hard time staying afloat, because we have to shift with the waves. It's the same thing as we're shifting and staying open, you know, with the work. And I would dare to say that soft skills were always the important piece, but we weren't giving it the value that it deserved. It was undervalued.
Yes, it was
at all
undervalued.
times. And so because it was so undervalued, now all of a sudden magically like, oh, soft skills is amazing. Like we should really do more of that. And I'm like, imagine, like we would have been so much healthier back then, but let's do it now, please. Right.
Yes.
Adaptability. And I would say that cultural competence, the intersectional work is important. So important. And so just knowing the definitions of what diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean is not enough. It's not enough. I need to really invite people to go on a journey, to learn, to challenge themselves, the way in which they think they have seen the world, the way they have understood, who has taught them that, right? Because sometimes that part is painful, because some of that comes from people that we love and we care about, but it may not be necessarily the way. And to stay open to that, because the world is intersectional, and it continues to be intersectional, and will continue to lead intersectionally. Again, if not, then we're not going to stay competitive. We're not going to be able to find the next thing that you may be looking for. So all of those things are critical pieces, not only as a leader and as a manager, but also as a contributor to the world and as a citizen of the world. We owe it to each other to do that. That's how we can elevate the work. And honestly, anything less than that, to me, it's unacceptable.
Yes.
Unacceptable.
Yes. And so before we close, Maria and I forgot who else asked the question about balancing empathy, Dana, and effectiveness. Lauren, did you want to respond to that question really quick before we close out?
Yeah,
balancing, how do I balance empathy with effectiveness?
Yes, I wanted to pop in and say we have a new program called Grow Lab, which touch bases on empathy in the workplace, accountability in the workplace, and courageous conversations. And we're doing a preview session. I think next week. Asia can let me know if I'm correct in the comments here. But would love for anybody to like sign up and join that session. We'll be doing a preview of the empathy side of that and talking about how to balance empathy and effectiveness. And our facilitators can give way better information than I can on that and do a better job getting that light bulb to click for you. So if you want to understand more about that, I would encourage you to join us next week.
Yes, next week, December the 14th for the Learning Jam. Thank you all so much for your time. I am Hakemia Jackson, your next moderator, and we want to thank you so much for the time that you've given us, that you've invested into your learning and development journey, your leadership growth journey, and your 2023 greatness. All right, keep living it out and be blessed. Happy holidays to all. Bye.